Hey, Cookies here with another Bigwigs walkthrough, and we're going to be talking about Ruby life pools. Just to quickly recap what we went over in Algathar Academy, the essential setup tips that I like to use when setting up Bigwigs is I like to make sure that I'm identifying specific sounds for specific situations. This means that I want the same sounds for the same types of situations across all dungeons and raids. That's what helps alert me properly and has me not have to think about what the sounds actually mean. I memorize them in that way. So for me, this is things like dangerous debuffs on myself where I need to press a defensive or dispels or interrupts. And then I also always try to find one important ability for every single boss to enable a countdown timer for, because then that countdown timer will alert me of something specific happening that I will then, remember over time. So let's jump into Ruby Life Pools. Just to preface, again, really quick, is I definitely recommend going and watching the Algathar Academy guide first. That one has the most in-depth explanation to my reasoning behind like why I set up bigwigs like this and the reasons that I do all this stuff and all that. So go check out that video first and then come back here. But we'll go ahead and start with the first boss, Melidrussa. And for this one, we'll just walk through each of the abilities and then just decide if we need something for them. So Awaken Whelps. We don't really need anything to notify us that the ads are coming. It's very obvious when she is awakening the whelps. We have Primal Chill, which is a dispel. And all that's important is that we dispel this at 10 stacks no matter what. But we, again, don't need some kind of alert for this because our unit frame should be telling us how many stacks the tank has. And if anything, we can just use like a weak or something to like yell at us when they're getting close to 10 stacks, because this will alert us every time a stack is applied, which isn't very helpful. Next up, we have Frost Overload, which is where she just does damage to the entire group. This is usually right after she awakens the whelps, and it does a lot of unavoidable group-wide damage. So I think for this one, I would probably... I don't actually know if I would set anything for this because, again, she awakens the whelps and then uses this ability, so it's very, like, obvious when it's happening and telegraphed, so we're going to skip over that one as well. And then now we have Chillstorm and Hail Bombs, which are, like, the two abilities which we're definitely going to set things up for. So Chillstorm is where she targets a player, and then they need to run this little, like, swirly vortex out of the group, and then it sucks everybody towards it and explodes and does a bunch of unavoidable group-wide damage. So... this one, we don't need to know when another player has it because it will, again, be very visually obvious when someone else has it. So we want to set it to only when on me. We want to have this checked. And then we're going to go to the sound settings. And then what I like to use for abilities where you have to run away or use some kind of movement to do something with a debuff or boss ability that's happening or some kind of mechanic is I use the flag taken PvP sound. It sounds like this. And what that does is as soon as I hear that sound anytime, because again, we're being consistent with setting the same sounds for the same situations. So whenever I get this sound, it's always telling me, hey, you need to move. So I always use this sound for whenever there is something that I need to move with. So we're going to go ahead and set that up for Chillstorm. And then for Hail Bombs, this is the one where when she casts it, it drops these little swirlies under everybody's feet and spawns these little ice shards. And ideally in hierarchies, you're going to want to try to group these up together so that they're not all over the room and causing problems, especially as the Chillstorm is pulling you around and stuff. So this is the perfect ability to set a countdown for. Because if we set a countdown for this, it alerts us, hey, you have 5 seconds, 4 seconds, 3 seconds, so on, before this is going to drop like right under your feet. So if we don't set a countdown for it, it's just going to drop under our feet and we're not going to have time to like pre-position or group up, or if like our group decides to like stack together to drop them, stuff like that. So having a countdown lets us kind of preemptively think, okay, where am I dropping this? Is it in a good spot? Do I need to move really quick? So just every time we hear that countdown, we know that this ability is coming. So we'll go ahead and set that up. And I think that's pretty much it for this boss. So we will go to Kokia Blazehoof next, and we have Ritual of Blaze Binding. This is where she summons the big ad, and then you need to kill the ad. And then let's see. I think this one, we don't really need to set anything up for it. Because again, it's very telegraphed when it's happening. And there's nothing immediately dangerous happening. It's just her spawning an ad. And then we have Molten Boulder, which is a random frontal towards a player. So we're going to set this to the sound, and we're going to change it to the noise that I make for frontals, which avoidable frontals are always 190 for me. I always use that. So whenever something randomly turns and does some kind of frontal ability, I use 190 in the retro arcade sound, sorry. And I will have links in the description and the comments for these sound packs that I use because I find them really useful because they're very unique sounds, which really helps identify all this stuff. So we have Molten Boulder, we have Searing Blows, which is, I believe, just like a big tank hit. Does it apply a dispel? I don't remember. I think it's just a big tank hit. I don't think you can really do anything about it. It's just something where you'd want to use externals on the tank. So we're going to leave that alone for now. And then Roaring Blaze is the one where the whole group takes unavoidable damage. So I think we would set... yeah, I think we'd set a countdown for Roaring Blaze just so we can kind of predict when it's when it's about to happen. So when we start hearing the countdown, that's when we know, hey, the elemental is about to cast and do a bunch of damage to everybody and you need to be prepared for it. The other option is setting a countdown for Molten Boulder. That way we just get even more aware of it because it does leave a giant fire trail on the ground. So knowing a little bit ahead of time when it's going to do that. I think I'm actually going to do that. Yeah, we're going to remove the countdown on Roaring Blaze and put it on Molten Boulder. Because just even having more being able to telegraph this ability even more will help a lot because of positioning requirements and stuff. So I think that's it for that boss. Next up is going to be Kyrakka and Erkhart. And we have the stages. We just leave that alone. We have Inferno Core, Roaring Fire Breath, and Flame Spit ignite targets, inflicting fire damage. Yeah. This is just like a passive. It doesn't actually do anything. So having this isn't overly useful. Roaring Fire Breath, that's a frontal. So again, we go set that to the frontal sound, which is 190. Just so we know when that's happening. And then Winds of Change is going to be where the fire on the floor and all of the players are getting blown back a bit. So we want to change that to, I'm going to set it to something like Beware. I usually use that when there's some kind of really important boss ability happening or something where I need to just be aware of my surroundings and stuff like that. And then we have Interrupting Cloudburst. That's very important. That's going to interrupt us. So I think for this one, we will do a countdown for this. And that way we know 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, the boss is going to interrupt us. I need to stop casting. And obviously he does a cast after that countdown, so it's not immediate. But when we start hearing that countdown, we know, hey, we need to top off the group. And then we're going to have a little bit of downtime because we're not going to be able to be casting anything. And I think that's it for that boss. So now we'll check if there's any trash. Looks like there is. So we have Excavating Blast. That's going to be like a big swirly on the floor. So I'll set that to the, not the frontal sound, but I use the avoid sound when it's like a giant swirly on the floor that spawns. So just that. And then we have Ice Shield, which is just an important interrupt. We'll just leave that alone. Blazing Rush is a randomized frontal. So we will go ahead and set that to the frontal noise, 190. And then we have Steel Barrage is an important for us. Living Bomb is something that goes on individual players and then does a fair amount of damage, especially in higher keys. So for this, we're going to set it to only when on me because we don't need to be notified when it casts it on other players. We have unit frames for that. We'll see the debuff on them when they have it and when they need to be healed. So we set it to only when on me. And then I'm going to change the sound to 183, I believe is what I use. It sounds like that. Whenever I hear this noise, it tells me, hey, you need to press a defensive right now. So as soon as I hear that noise, I press a defensive, just like no questions asked every time. So I always set that up for like debuffs or things that target me specifically and do lots of damage. And then we have Inferno, which is the one, just like the unavoidable damage that it does. Burnouts when it dies. Don't need to worry about all that stuff. Unlucky Strike. That's like a Dispel. So I think we'll leave that alone for now because this is the Shockcasters. And then Thunderhead does Rolling Thunder. That's a frontal. So we're going to change that to the 190 sound since it's he just faces a random player and does a big frontal. Oh, is it not? Oh, no. I'm wrong. Rolling Thunder is the really nasty Dispel ability. So we're going to set that to... I think we'll do... We'll just set it to the default alert, and then I'm not going to mess with that because, again, we'll see this on our raid frame or on our unit frame, so we don't really need a notification for it. And then for the Storm Breath, we're going to enable a countdown for this, and we're going to enable the frontal noise. And what that's going to do is just let us know as far ahead of time as possible that a randomized frontal is about to happen, because they are super deadly on these 2 dragons that are in the trash packs. And then again, we have Flame Breath, which is another one, so we enable a countdown for that one as well, because we shouldn't be fighting them at the same time ever. Like, that should never happen. So it's okay to set a countdown for both of these different mobs. Cool. So we have countdowns enabled for the frontals, and I think that's pretty much it for all the trash. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope it made sense, and we will go over the Azure Vault next, but that's for another video. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.